This is The Weekly Set, an official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com.
I wish I was the monster you think I am.
You have come here to beseech me?
Can't ask for your soul.
Madness can be a medicine for the modern world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. I'm your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today, this is episode 272 of The Weekly Set. We are going to be talking about The Boys and Lovecraft Country, and we are recording this on September 14th. So let's just jump right into The Boys. We had one new episode of The Boys since last week. They did their whole weird staging thing where they released the first 3 episodes and now they're releasing week to week. Did you hear about the backlash from that?
No, but I don't really follow that. I don't care about the back people.
Series got review bombed.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, I'm sure the people who made the show care that they got review bombed.
It's idiots on the internet. Like, idiots are gonna be idiots. So,
But that affects things, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, it's unfortunate that people are like, they're upset about a release window, so they review bomb a show.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah.
What you gotta do though? Like. Yeah,
this is, their strategy to have kind of more of a water cooler style show. That's what they want this to be.
I think I appreciate because it allows for like speculation to happen.
Yeah.
Say you watched all of the, like if they dumped it, like you watched the whole thing, you binged it, and I watched up to episode 4. I couldn't like realistically speculate with you about what's gonna happen. You're gonna have like this knowing smile on your face the whole time. Like, yeah. It's like, there are benefits and drawbacks. The benefits is obviously you get that instant gratification. The drawback, the benefit of a full dump is you get that instant gratification. The drawback is you can't have that speculation. You can't have that water cooler discussion. And it's the opposite with, week to week. You don't get the instant gratification, but you get to speculate, which, for me, that's fun too.
Yeah.
Like, I love the speculation.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of what made, Lost great.
Can you imagine if
Game of Thrones great,
Yeah. Can you imagine if they dumped like all 6 seasons of Lost at once and said, have at it? Don't speculate on the mysteries, because if you just binge it, you'll know everything. It's like, no, Lost would not be the phenomena it is. Like, people would binge it and be like, oh, okay. Like, that would have been it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for both. Like, there's a lot of times there's a divide between people that talk about, the benefits of binging and the benefits of a week-to-week release schedule. And people on both sides are pretty militant. Like, the people that are like, it should be week-to-week are like, it should never be binge. It should never be like this. And the people that are like week-to-week are like, why should I have to watch it week-to-week? It should always be binge. It should always be dropped all at once.
Maybe it's a generational thing, because maybe like I think we're coming up with like a generation being raised by like streaming services like Netflix, and I think we're older, so we're used to like watching TV where it was always like a week to week thing. The whole Netflix binging thing is a new phenomena,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I was brought up to where like I had to wait a week to watch my shows. When I was like following Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I had to wait every week for that. It's like, it's just what I knew. And so if that's the way they want to do it, I'm comfortable with it.
See, the thing is, I think both formats work, I think one of the best things to compare it to is like books, cause you think of like a season of a show as like a book. So like, for instance, if Harry Potter was a TV series, each book would be a season,
Right.
And a book is released all at once. So people would go, see, that's the binge theory. That's the binge strategy in place. But that wasn't how it always was for a lot of books. I mean, most of Charles Dickens' works were released chapter by chapter.
Right.
Like, at a time, it was serialized. That's where the term serialization comes from. they would release like a chapter from the book every couple, weeks or month or whatever. And people would be able to read that, and then they'd follow it in the next edition that came out with multiple stories in it.
Okay, well, let's talk about The Boys.
That's our big workaround to get into the Boys. So we're talking about episode 4, Nothing Like It in the World. Episode 3 ended with the shocking reveal that Stormfront is actually a horrible fucking racist monster.
Yeah. So a woman who named herself after a racist website is in fact racist. Shocking news, no pun intended.
Well, I mean, Stormfront doesn't necessarily mean it's a racist website. It's literally the front of a storm too.
A lot of people pointed.
She has lightning powers, and
yeah. No, I get it. But a lot of people did point out who are they fooling with that name?
Yeah, I don't think they tried to, and it's also the fact that, I mean, it was a given from the comic books, so it's not like it's something that if you did any research at all, you'd know what the thing was. But I watched a bunch of reaction videos of episode 3, and a lot of people were shocked.
Oh, really?
There were a lot of people totally rooting for Stormfront, thinking she was this feminist ideal that was going to topple Homelander and shit. And then,
yeah.
And then when that scene started unfolding, like when she showed up and zapped the siblings through the wall, they were like, "Oh no, Stormfront, don't do this," like as if she was this great character that was just confused, and then she killed the father of that family, and then the kids, and then you could just see their faces dropping.
Oh, damn.
So there were a lot of people that didn't get it. Like, they just didn't have that. They just didn't think about that. And they had no knowledge of the comic books.
They thought Stormfront was going to be awesome. Yeah. Sorry.
Sweet summer child. As George R. R. Martin would say, sweet summer children, each and every one. But yeah, so that's kind of how episode 3 ended, and that's a big part of episode 4 now, is kind of the dealing with that and just the loss in general, because, they were planning on turning in the brother for Butcher was going to get access to where his wife was, all these things. So this was a huge loss for them at the end of episode 3 for that reason, but also for Kimiko herself, just for losing her brother was obviously the biggest loss there.
Right.
And then just the knowledge that this new superhero might be even worse than Homelander. All that stuff kind of together, was just a massive loss. So that's kind of what this episode is about dealing with that, trying to figure out what's going on with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of a few parts to this episode. There's a road trip component in which Huey, Mother's Milk, and Starlight all go on a road trip together, much to Mother's Milk's chagrin.
Yes.
They're going on a trip. They're trying to find information about a super named Liberty. And
an old soup named Liberty Bell, who hadn't been active since the 70s.
I think it's just Liberty. I think you're thinking of what was that show? Glow, that had Liberty Bell.
Oh, probably.
But I like to imagine they're the same person.
Oh yeah, it's Alison Brie for sure.
Yeah.
Spoilers, it's not Alison Brie.
Betty Gibson or. She started as a female professional wrestler.
Yes.
And then she developed superpowers.
Yep, it is. Yeah, it's just Liberty in The Boys. Yeah, you're right. I have stuff mixed up in my head.
They're all the same show to you.
They're all the same show. It turns out it's all in the same universe. If you haven't watched this episode, well, I mean, you're gonna get spoiled anyway. Don't Google Liberty The Boys. That just leads to a spoiler on the wiki. But you're gonna get spoiled anyway, so you even know why I'm saying that.
Yeah, I know we're talking about the show within reference to it.
Yeah.
Already airing and full spoilers, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the end result is that, we'll just say it right up front, is that Liberty is Stormfront.
Yes.
Stormfront's been alive for a very long time.
And also we get another story. This time it's the story of a survivor in basically an attack perpetrated by Liberty in the 70s,
mm-hmm.
where where it's, it's this black woman and she's talking about like an incident when she was like very young where she was traveling with, I think it was her brother.
Yeah.
And Liberty stops them, under some bullshit pretense of, that guy being a thief and then like basically bashes his skull in.
Yeah.
And basically, and says some, horrifically racist things and then leaves.
Not knowing that his sister was in the car with him.
Yes.
And she comes out and finds his body. We find out that she had been kind of paid off by Vought, the same way they tried to pay off Huey at the very beginning of the series when his fiancée was killed. And they tried to pay him off, and because they were black in the 70s and stuff, they just kind of took the money as more of like a don't kill us kind of move, because they knew that they'd be fucked otherwise, unfortunately. So they kind of had to stay quiet and live like in fear for the rest of their lives, basically.
Right.
So this witness ends up revealing this to them, and then they're like, you can tell us. And she's like, you don't understand. If she finds out, she'll kill me. And then they're like, she has to be dead by now, this is in the 70s, and she's like, no, you don't understand. And she like pulls up a picture, and it's Stormfront. And
yes.
So the reveal there that makes it even more horrific, if you think about it, is that it was already horrific, the idea that like, okay, superheroes can be these atrocious people. That was already bad. Then you add in the fact that a superhero could be like a full-on fucking Nazi racist. And it's like, okay, now that's like even scarier. Now even more horrific is the prospect that this Nazi fucking, horrible person, superhero racist could actually like live forever, exist and just as a constant, like never ending threat, to people.
Yeah. She's either immortal or she like ages much, slowly, like much more slowly than normal humans, like something like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because now we know who exactly she is. We now know that she is not like some new person. Like she has a history and Vought knows all about it. So it makes it more interesting that Stan Edgar personally put her in the 7. Yeah. And you gotta wonder, like, why? Yeah.
A man who's clearly not white.
Yeah. A man who would clearly know all about this. It's not like this would be a secret. So, like, why did he put her in the 7 all of a sudden? That's gotta be part of whatever agenda he's running.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what his agenda is, because, like, he's also interesting to me because he basically stared down Homelander and did not seem scared at all.
Yeah, I'm thinking more and more that he is Vought.
Yeah.
That he is the man himself, Vought. I don't think that necessarily makes him, like, a super on the same level as the others. Like, maybe he doesn't have powers or something. Maybe he has the ability to, like, change his appearance and kind of immortality or something like that, But I'm just thinking he's got something along those lines now. Just because, I think that's going to be the reveal that he was like this Nazi scientist and he was Vought, and that Stormfront wasn't just around in the 70s, but was around all the way back in the 40s.
Oh yeah, I think Stormfront is actually one of the first soups Vought created. I'm going to go out there and say that's not based on anything. That's not based on the comics or anything that I've read. That's my own personal speculation. I just want to put that out there. I'm not taking stuff from the comic books and like repeating it as speculation. So that's just my speculation from like my thought processes going with this, especially because like the story Stan Edgar gave to Homelander about Vought and Vaught's like personal history where he got his start working for the Third Reich,
Yeah.
And that makes me think that, and knowing Stormfront is racist and knowing that she is, seemingly immortal, like, you can kind of put the pieces together and say, she was probably like one of the first soups that Vought created for the Third Reich.
Yeah. So it's gonna, and we know we're gonna be going back apparently to that era because we know that Soldier Boy is gonna be a part of season 3 and that he's like a Captain America kind of analog,
Right.
So that they're gonna be touching on that kind of stuff unless they change it,
He mentioned Soldier Boy being one of the first superheroes Vought created when Vought defected to America. He didn't mention anybody pre Soldier Boy, to Homelander. Homelander, conveniently enough. But yeah, and we know that, yeah, Soldier Boy's gonna come in next season. So, you know, like, I think there's a thread here that they're exploring, and they're gonna explore in much more detail.
Mm-hmm. Another kind of interesting thread we had going on in this episode was Homelander making visits to Madeline Stillwell, apparently.
Well, Homelander basically just losing his shit throughout the entire episode.
Yeah.
Like Stormfront's antics is causing Homelander to lose it.
Yeah. He's getting pissed off at memes.
Yeah,
he's getting trolled on the internet.
By the way, those memes are pretty spot on for like the types of memes like people actually make.
They used actual ones like the girlfriend one.
Yeah, they used the girlfriend meme, and
so that's pretty funny. It's playing into the whole kind of thing about the kind of the Trump presidency in a sense of like the Trump's party or his organization's use of like memes and stuff like that to kind of try to appeal to that segment of the voter base, you know. But it was interesting because Homelander's been unraveling with everything that's happened since the end of the last episode, you know, dealing with lies of people. He has a tense encounter with Starlight where he's like about to kill her. She ends up having to kind of selectively tell the truth because he can kind of figure out when she's lying.
Yeah, so basically what happens is when Homelander's visiting Madeline Stillwell, air quotes, which is actually Doppelganger, that Homelander is basically forcing to be Madeline Stillwell for him. And there's this great part where like Doppelganger can't hold the shape and he changes back and Homelander's just like, change the fuck back right now.
Yeah.
like that was pretty fucked up. But he's basically having Doppelganger basically fill his head with these ideas he's like, where did I go wrong with the 7? And it's like, oh, you gotta like regain control. You gotta show who's boss. And so that's what he starts doing. He starts going to like basically all the members. He starts with Starlight, like I said, in the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just said, like he basically is like going to kill her and she decides to selectively tell the truth.
Yeah. So she can't lie to him outright because that's what's pissing him off. That's what's aggravating him. And he's able to kind of read it off of her. So she tells the truth. She just does it selectively to kind of make it look like what he wants to hear or something and manipulates it into saying like, I didn't kill him. I'm sorry if you wanted me to straight up murder somebody, but that's not what I do. Like, saying like, if you have a problem with that, then that's the problem, not the fact that she's a traitor, And so she's kind of playing around, kind of like selectively giving little nuggets of truth to kind of satisfy him or to stop him,
Right. And it works.
Yeah.
She gets out of there with his life and then he moves on from Starlight to firing A-Team.
Yeah.
A-Train.
A-Team.
A-Train. Yeah. To firing
I
A-Train.
pity the fool.
Yeah. Because of A-Train's heart problems.
Yeah. He points that out and they're like, it's a pretty tense scene because A-Train's like, what the fuck, whatever. And then like, as Homelander's kind of revealing, like, I know what's going on with your heart and shit like that. But then it's a tense moment of like, Homelander's being like overly kind of like friendly and PR-ish about it. But there's like a veiled kind of threat in there.
Yeah.
Like, back the fuck down kind of, So you kind of see how that's affecting A-Train, like how he's frustrated at the situation. He knows it's full of shit. He wants to call it out, but he can't because he'll be killed,
Right, exactly.
So he does that. They get rid of A-Train from the 7.
Yeah.
Almost immediately after that.
Then he goes in on Queen.
Show.
Yeah. He then goes in on Queen Maeve.
It's funny because it's almost immediately after that he's on a talk show and they bring up the issue of diversity. And he's like, oh, we have A-Train.
And surprisingly, that's where he decides to go in on her, is while he's in the middle of the talk show interview.
Yeah.
That's where he decides, because they bring up diversity. And he's like, we have A-Train. He's black and there's Black Noir. Black Noir is...
He doesn't identify as any particular race.
Yeah, as a particular race. Could be anything. and then this is when he starts to go in on Queen Maeve because he's just like, and Queen Maeve is a lesbian.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? Like he just outs her on national TV, and it's like really shitty. Just because
it's not just shitty though. It's complex because there's fear on her part mixed in too.
Oh,
Not from other people knowing she's a lesbian, but from the unveiling that Homelander knows she's a lesbian.
Yeah.
Which is
from
something
Homelander
she was trying
now.
to keep from him because she thought he would kill her lover.
Yeah.
And so it's a complex kind of emotion showing across her face in this. She's trying to kind of smile like, oh yes, I am a proud lesbian because she's on the show, and she can't let the veil drop. At the same time, she's like, how the fuck does Homelander know? Oh my god, is he gonna kill my girlfriend?
Right.
And then at the same time, she's pissed off because he's just outed her on TV.
Yeah.
So it's like this whole complex scene going on for her, and Queen Maeve is just, we talked about, last week about how, like, Homelander's, like, isolate, or like, is creating division within the Seven. And here it's intentional. He's trying to kind of exert control. But, like, in the last episode, we were talking already about how people might start turning on him because of the way he's treating them, and, like, how that was highlighted in the last one. We mentioned the Deep, who is no longer in the Seven, but is trying to get back in the Seven, about the whole moment with him, and when he, like, said that his gills were fucking disgusting and stuff, you know?
Right.
And it's kind of like, we're getting, like, a continuation of that. It seems something's gotta come from that, and it can't just be Homelander using it to exert control. There's gotta be more to it than that, because the last episode had a totally different connotation to all of that.
It did. And then we finally get to the one thing, like, Homelander's been wanting to get to, like, his confrontation with Stormfront, which is really where all his angst is directed at in the first place. And she uses the confrontation to very stealthily manipulate him, which is what she's been doing anyway, you know, but she uses this as a further opportunity to manipulate him. And
I don't think anything she was saying is against what she believes, though.
No, she's not saying anything against her beliefs.
Because she kind of sucks up to him, but, like, I don't think that's her just manipulating him. I think that's her legitimately believing that, too, that he's everything she wants.
No, she believes that, but she's manipulating him because she believes it, but she wants him to get on board with that. Yeah. That's what she's trying to do. She's trying to, she's trying to turn Homelander into a nationalist. Yeah. You know, like herself.
Yeah. But I see it like
that's her end goal.
The one point I'm making there is that it's just like, I believe that entirely, but I also believe entirely when she said, like, that you're the best of us, you're what I strive for, is exactly what she means. Like, she's not shitting him. She's not manipulating him in that aspect. She legitimately does believe that. And that goes along to her talking about how blue his eyes were, you know?
It's not that she's not saying what she doesn't believe in. Mm-hmm. She's trying to get Homelander to believe that.
Yeah.
So
trying to radicalize him.
Yeah. And so she does that by pushing his buttons, pushing him to the edge of lashing out, and then pulling back. You know, that it's just manipulation tactics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, though, but it's like, it goes back to, like, in the last episode, last week when we talked about where she had first encountered him and talked about how blue his eyes were and stuff.
Yeah.
And then how, you know, at the end of the stuff we talked about last week on episode 3, with the reveal of her being, like, a racist, and then you apply the Stormfront thing, everything we're talking about, like, Nazism and connections, and it's like, Homelander's like the Aryan Superman, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly why she's trying to like convert Homelander to her cause, you know, because he is basically the god she worships.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole reason, you know, even though, like, Homelander's main concern is himself and his ego. She wants him to stand for something more than his ego, you know. That's what she wants.
Yeah.
So that's I think the basic through thread for the season. I think Stormfront is going to be the main antagonist of the season.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's going to, and I think what's going to happen is not only is she going to do some horrific stuff, but she's going to drive Homelander to do some truly horrific things throughout the season. You can already see it when you get to the end of the episode when Homelander kills Doppelganger, you know, saying, like, I don't need anybody. You can see,
what's interesting there is he specifically says, I don't need you. you
Yes.
when Doppelganger is in the form of Homelander.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when Doppelganger is in the form.
So I think that's not so much him saying he doesn't need Doppelganger, so much as it's saying he doesn't need some aspect of himself that he's seeing reflected back at it. So
Right.
I think he's saying, like, he doesn't need you, meaning maybe the Homelander mantle is maybe what he means. Like
maybe
the everything that the image of Homelander he doesn't need. I don't know. I think it's something.
all I know is it's an omen that things are going to go sideways in a really bad
Oh yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, so R.I.P. Doppelganger.
Yep, R.I.P. Doppelganger. He's the latest death in the series. And then should talk more about Huey, Mother's Milk, and Starlight's adventure, right? Well, we did mostly talk about
I don't think we really need to. Like, outside of just recapping, I think we've kind of covered the key events, and we got other stuff to talk about.
I think it was like nice to get the character interactions, to get some more backstory on Mother's Milk specifically.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah.
We don't know how much of his story was true.
Yeah, we don't know how much of it was true or if it was bullshit. That was nice. We got some more, some more bonding with Huey and Starlight.
We found out Starlight has the worst taste in candy.
Yes, yeah. We found out Starlight has the worst
trash taste in candy.
This trash taste in candy. So that leaves the only major plot thread in this episode, Billy Butcher's.
Basically, it was character moment. It was, I kind of want to move on from this. So I'll say basically, you could sum up Billy Butcher's thing is that Billy Butcher and his wife come to the realization together, although they don't necessarily want to agree with it, and Butcher doesn't want to agree to it, that Butcher is not going to be able to have a relationship with her because what she cares about more than anything now is her son, and he hates her son because of who he is.
Right.
He's a soup, and because he's Homelander's child. And so he can't ever bring himself to care for that child. And because of that, Becca can never kind of be back in a relationship with him again because of that.
Right.
So it puts an end to that storyline in a sense. That's kind of, I think, the only thing that's really kind of integral to that,
Right, absolutely.
Other than that, there's, a lot of character drama and stuff, but we're not going to recap everything because we got other shows to cover.
Yes, we do.
So let's move on to Lovecraft Country. Now, normally when we talk about like multiple episodes of a show, we kind of talk about it all as like one big thing, but Lovecraft Country has made each episode kind of distinct in its own thing.
They have.
We can kind of cover that episode to episode.
Well, I can summarize it, which one, so this would, be episode 4, right?
A History of Violence, episode 4. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is like Raiders of the Lost Ark, basically.
Yeah.
Is what it reminded me of.
I remember when I was talking to you about this episode before you had watched it, and what I had said was that, without spoiling anything, that this is the kind of show I would have wanted as a TV show, but I don't necessarily think they executed it all that well. And that's specifically what I meant is the Raiders of the Lost Ark aspect. Like,
right.
I would love a TV show that's like that. That's like a Raiders of the Lost Ark TV show that's got like hidden tombs and mysteries and things. I think that would be an amazing thing. So watching that on a show like Lovecraft Country was really cool. It's like, oh, it's magic and it's mystery and it's runes and it's all this stuff. But there's just so many like weird inconsistencies. And the main thing I'll bring up is that they're traveling underneath there. And at a certain point I realized, like, before it showed it, that like, oh, these are the tunnels that connect to that elevator in Letty's house. I realized that they came across the elevator and like seemed to have like almost no reaction to it. Like, it's just kind of, that was like weird to me. And it's also weird considering how long of a drive they took to get to that museum.
Yeah, they go to this museum and like they go through this whole underground thing. It's all connected to the house Letty bought, which I thought was like kind of weird. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I thought it was kind of convenient.
Like, way too convenient. Like, it's not just that it's that, but it's like they drove like how many miles like in a car like to get to this museum, and then they literally like walk underground in the museum and end up back at Letty's house. Like, how does that happen? that's gonna, like, it's just the distances don't make sense, you know? There's other things like the kind of like cavernous things right underneath the museum, like that kind of doesn't make sense, you know? There's a lot of that kind of stuff. And you get into, I mean, this is cosmic horror, which is the whole idea is that it's the unimaginable and the uninterpretable kind of sense of horror. Like things could be, they don't make sense, and that's part of the horror. But like it didn't play into the horror in this sense. It only played into kind of illogical.
Yeah, no, this episode didn't really lean into the horror aspects. This was much more in the vein of an adventure show. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was going from like the other episodes is kind of like, it seemed like almost like a complete tonal shift. You know, we did get the scene with the Native American woman, like, coming back to life. And that was, like, pretty creepy, you know, as, like, she starts as, like, this corpse, and the corpse gets up and starts moving and shit. But, I mean, that's, like, the freakiest part in the episode. Mm-hmm. You know, from a horror standpoint. The rest of it is, like Indiana Jones stuff, you know.
Yeah. It's the problem is I just don't think that stuff worked because it just didn't, like, logically fit in place, you know? Like, there were so many problems with it, I think, that ended up hurting it for me. Like, I really wanted to like it. And, like, every time there'd be some kind of cool thing that, like, Indiana Jones-esque thing going on, I'd be, like, kind of leaning forward and getting excited. And then as it started fitting together, it's like, this makes no fucking sense. You know, like, this just makes no sense at all. Like, so there's, like, an underwater ship in the middle of a cave that's connected to the cave, and then the cave's also connected to Letty's house, which is, like 30 miles away, but they traversed it in, like, 10 minutes on foot. Like,
right.
What? Like, what's going on here? Like, there's a giant cavernous cave that's cavernous on the top and bottom, and yet they're just underneath the surface of the museum. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it's like, if this was a video game, like, you'd be like, wait a minute, you wouldn't be able to render this all in one shot because the things don't connect. Spatially, they don't connect correctly, you know? It's kind of a Doctor Who issue, but unintentional. Where the Doctor Who joke has always been like that the TARDIS is bigger on the inside than on the outside. And that's like the joke.
Oh, right.
But it's like an intentional thing about the weird, timey-wimey distortions kind of thing in Doctor Who. Whereas here, it's not even played as that. It's played as just like, nope, that's how it is. If you excavated under the museum, you'd find all of this stuff.
Right.
And it's like, and that just doesn't make sense. Like, logically, from like a space perspective, it doesn't make sense. The distances don't make sense, you know? So,
right.
And just even other character reactions, like they showed, Tick's, aunt and cousin traveling back by car, having like abandoned the other people there, and they're like pissed off that they had to leave. But it's just something that's never going to be addressed. Like, it's never like, where did they go? What happened?
Well,
it's
not, it's
like,
certainly
it's
not
nothing.
addressed in like episode 5. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's just weird. Like, it's those touches, like the idea that it's connected to Letty's house is a really cool idea. The way they executed that was really like off. Like, it didn't work, you know? Like, it didn't make any sense.
I just thought, why didn't they go down the elevator then?
Well, because they didn't know, but even though they didn't know that,
but they had
no reaction. Exactly.
They weren't surprised when they saw the elevator though.
That's the thing. Oh. That's the exact thing. It's like they didn't know, but then they didn't show any surprise.
Right.
That's why I'm saying, like, it's kind of a mess, you know? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, like, so this, if you kind of like just completely turn your brain off and just enjoy a Raiders of the Lost Ark stuff, there's cool stuff in here.
If you ignore the issues of spatial, there's a lot of cool stuff. There's like the thin platform and and it starts disappearing. You know, there's like the big swinging scythe in the middle that they gotta like get over it. You know, like there's a lot of cool like adventure elements in the episode. You know, we got like stuff like the Native American woman who has like the scrolls, who's apparently like guarding the scrolls, I guess. You know, like they get her to come with them, but Montrose like kills her in like the last scene of the episode.
See, that's the thing is like, you know what this is almost like, this episode? It's almost like, have you ever had like a really epic dream? Where like when you're in the dream, it's all like awesome, like stuff's happening left and right, all sorts of cool shit's going on. But when you like wake up and you try to remember it and you think about it, you're like, wait, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't connect at all. Like this was completely illogical. Like your initial instinct when you wake up is like, man, this would be a great story if I wrote this down or something. And then when you start to think about it, you start to realize that the whole thing is a scattered mess that makes no sense at all.
Right.
That's what this episode felt like to me. A bunch of really cool things that just did not connect at all.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Absolutely.
So that's pretty much it for that episode, right? Anything else?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean...
Well, I guess there's one other thing I can bring up from this episode, now that I think about it.
You mean like the ending with, William and, I believe it's Rose?
Yeah, with them, but in particular, just more with William, because we had a scene where Christina had like, she was being followed or like watched after by these local police officers that were part of another kind of sect of the
that's right.
thing.
Yeah.
And she walked like into the shadows, and then you see William walk out. And at that moment, I don't know if it hit you at that moment. I was like, shit, she's the same person.
I don't think I noticed. I'm gonna be honest with you.
It was like the first thing that hit my head. It's like, she's like the same person. And the second that realization came to me, I realized, wow, they've never been in the same scene together. Like ever. There's never been a moment where those two have been in the same scene. And I was like, at that point, I was sure they were the same person. And I'm saying that because that leads into the next episode.
Right.
So now we're going to be talking about episode 5 of Lovecraft Country, Strange Case.
Yes. Like we said at the end of last episode, basically William propositioned Letitia or Letty.
Not Letty, Letty's sister, Ruby.
So anyway, yeah. So when William propositions Ruby, he says he's going to make her an offer that will change her life. And we don't know what he's talking about until this episode starts.
Well, she wakes up as a white woman.
Yeah.
And is kind of like horrified and walking around like a crazy lady. But like the perspective that she's getting just right off the bat is, instead of being treated like a crazy person, she's being treated like, oh, you poor thing, as a white woman, like being treated as a human. Whereas if she had done the same thing as a black person, she'd be looked at with scorn.
Right.
So this has an immediate impact on her, all the way into the point where she bumps into and knocks over a black boy in the South Side when she's going through there. And the second that happens, police officers are on the scene about to fucking straight up kill this kid, saying, what did you do to her? What did you do to her? And she's like, It takes her a while to like come to his defense, because she just isn't at all at first, because she's just kind of shot in shock. And she's got her own hands up in the same way of like, even though they're not asking that of her or expecting that of her, because that's, she's black and that's her experience. It's what she expects to have to do. But she's like, she comes to that moment of shock where she gets out of it and realizes, oh, they're going to kill this kid. And she's like, no, he didn't do anything. He was just trying to help me. And they're like, you don't have to protect this animal and all sorts of other racist shit,
Oh, yeah.
And this kind of encounter and this kind of moment kind of like, it kind of defines the shape of the rest of this episode, which is the kind of idea of like, Ruby being able to experience life as a white person and kind of like how angry it makes her, and how she's getting like, it plays back and forth with her, because part of it is the anger at the way she's, would be treated if she was black and the kind of things she can get away with when she's white, but also just like the way like white people are with each other and in like that she can have exposed to her under the guise of being white, and even her relationship to other black people, who know already that she's got a big issue with her sister and stuff, and they have like issues between them, and the whole kind of idea of like being the pretty girl that, the pretty light-skinned girl. It's not light-skinned in this episode with the other girl, but that I'm going to mention, but with Letitia, it is. Of like her being kind of like the ugly sister, in a sense, the one that's not the pretty one that doesn't get all the attention that her sister does, and like how that plays into it. So it's like a big mix of things like that. And the example in this case is that as a white woman now, she is the manager of this one black person who works at the
well, yeah, like she, as a white woman, she easily gets this job at the department store, like a manager position, even more than what she was trying for as herself. You know, this job that she, you know, at the store that she dreamed of, that she was trying so hard to get and seemingly couldn't get. She just changes her skin tone, and all of a sudden, you know, she gets like the world handed to her, you know, basically.
Yeah. But it's like, it's interesting though, because it's complex, because she takes that perspective, and then she like talks to, you know, this black girl that had been working there at the store. Is the only black girl that was working there. And initially her reaction is kind of like, oh, you know, you're like me. You worked really hard to get into this position, you know, much harder than any white person would have to. And, you know, so you got your education here. And she's like, no, oh, I didn't graduate. She's like, oh, but you went and got your certificate here. And she's like, oh, you can do that?
Yeah.
And so it ends up creating this, like, she ends up getting like really kind of pissed.
Well, she was
because it
already...
brings back, it's not just a black and white thing for her. It's also the whole thing about the pretty young black thing is able to get, you know, advantages that she didn't, even though she was more qualified.
Well, she was already jealous of the fact that that woman was hired for the job and that she wasn't. You know, she was already upset about that last episode, you know, especially when she found out, like, that woman was, like, the only black person that they hired, you know. So she was even more bewildered as to, you know, why it wasn't her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what she does, at least initially, is she takes that out a little bit on her at first.
Yeah, she kind of like, she approaches her at first as like kind of like a sister, even though the other girl's not going to be able to comprehend that because she doesn't appear that way to her. But quickly like ends up slipping back into her prejudices against her.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was kind of interesting, is it's kind of like, I think a lot of this episode is about Ruby's hatred.
Yeah.
Like her frustrations and her anger and where she assigns it. And like how she doesn't quite know where to assign it. Like, does she assign it to white people? Does she assign it to the pretty black girls to get the advantages that she didn't because they're prettier, you know? Like, where does this assign? Where do these things get assigned? Where does this hatred get assigned? And I think that's kind of her struggle through this episode.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's her big thing. But, you know, eventually she gets to know more of the white employees at the department store, and the more she learns, you know, the worse it is. Yeah. Because they're all horrible people, you know.
They're all like kind of gossiping behind their back, saying like, oh, you know, hopefully we just don't get another one of those black girls coming in.
They're all horribly racist, like every single one of them. And the whole thing culminates with, like, basically she goes up to the other woman, the other black woman that's working there, you know, she basically goes in on her, this time not out of like jealousy, but out of like, I think she's trying to help. Mm-hmm. She's saying, you know, you gotta be better than all these white people, you know, you gotta work harder, you gotta be better. And she's kind of like going off.
So before you know it, you'll be in a closet without a tongue.
and yeah. Oh God, that we'll get to that. But anyway, like, but she's being overheard by like some of the white employees, and eventually like the manager comes over and he asks, you know, like, is everything like okay, you know? And she kind of like, Ruby kind of like freezes up, and she's like kind of like, oh yeah, actually, you know, like she was just asking if we all wanted to like go to a bar in the South Side, you know.
Yeah, which is something the white coworkers had expressed they wanted to do.
Yeah, had expressed that they wanted to do. You know, she says it off the cuff, and so that leads to them all going to the South Side of Chicago to the one bar there that Ruby always goes to. And basically what happens is like there's an incident where like the black woman there, like she runs out and like the manager like attempts to rape her, you know, and then she socks him one, and she runs away, and he's like screaming, you know, like racial epithets and stuff at her, and you know, and Ruby, she's changing back into her normal self, you know, the stuff is like wearing off, and she kind of
great transformation scenes, by the way.
Oh God, yeah, the transformation scenes are like so freaky, like because like the skin is literally like melting off You know, like, so like there's a skin, there's like the blood and the gore. It's really disgusting.
There's also things like the in her white form, she'll have like her mouth open, and then you'll see like her eye like inside her mouth. It's like just
it's really freaky. And one of the criticisms I had is like it's a great effect, but like in that last scene there where we're talking about where she's transforming back, like I feel like that goes on for too long. It's like I was like halfway into that part, and I was like, yeah, we get it. This is really really disgusting. And we just like we got the gist. You don't have
it was really cool, but then they overdid it.
They overdid it. I'm like, yeah, they overdid it. I was like, it's pretty disgusting. You don't have to show it all the time. Really earning like that R rating, but
the TVMA,
yeah, the TVMA. But she's out, so she's out there because the stuff is wearing off, and she's not going to take like another dose. You know, she like destroys like the dose that she has, and while she's changing, she overhears her manager like basically, you know, what happened. Like basically, like he was trying to rape that woman, and this leads to basically her planning some payback against him.
It comes in the moment that Christina's talking to her and says that she misunderstood William's invitation. He said William wasn't inviting you to the world of being white. He was inviting you to the world of having power.
Right.
And power doesn't just mean turning yourself white. It means being able to do whatever the fuck you want. And that leads immediately with what had happened in that, you know, bar, with witnessing her manager almost raping this woman. This leads immediately to Ruby kind of taking a different tact. She's no longer interested in being, you know, a white woman who works at this place and has a position of power.
Oh God,
that's no longer important to her.
No, because she saw like how disgusting these people are, you know, and she decided, you know, she doesn't want to have to work for these pieces of shit.
Yeah, like, she has access to more power than that.
Yeah.
So she plots a pretty visceral revenge on this manager. She basically rapes him with her high heel, horrifically. Some might even say a little overdone, but, you know, I think it plays into the concept that the show has done for a lot of things, which is that it's these moments of triumph against these disgusting, horrible figures, you know? And that's part of what the show's about, is about really playing those moments up, you know?
Oh yeah, playing up those moments of empowerment. Yeah. And that was like that was like the standout scene of the entire episode. Was that scene where Ruby is basically getting revenge for like this guy being like a huge piece of shit.
Yeah, completely blows her cover though, because she walks out transforming as this whole thing's happening and saying that she wanted him to know it was a black woman that did this to him and stuff.
Yeah. At that point, she doesn't care. She doesn't give a shit.
Exactly. That's the real message you get from it. Isn't just that she got revenge, but that this no longer matters to her.
Yeah, this no longer matters to her. And then that's when we get the big reveal. Like I said, you're astute, so you already noticed it. Well, we get she returns back to William's place. Actually, we should talk about like we should circle back and talk about the favor she did for William.
Yeah, William told her that she was going to have to do a favor for Christina.
Yeah.
Saying that, you know, you're going to go to this party and you're going to meet with Christina and she's going to tell you to do something and you need to do it. And then he says, oh, and I got you something, and it's like a box with an outfit in it. It has you written all over it. And she opens it up and it's like a maid's outfit or something.
Right.
Like a server's outfit.
She does not look amused.
Yeah.
You know?
She's not happy. You see her, she does it because it was part of the deal. So she's going around serving at this place, which is a location of that other sect of the cult.
Yes.
That's run by this like sheriff or guy, this Captain Lancaster.
And basically what Christina wants her to do is to put like this thing.
It looks like a stone or something.
Yeah, it looks like a stone. I guess it's like some kind of rune or something. She wants her to put it in the captain's office and leave. And she claims it's revenge against him because she claims he tried to kill William, you know, to take over the lodge, you know, and that she was the one who kept William alive. She gives a story. So Ruby goes in there and plants it, but then she hears something in like one of the closets, and she opens it up, and it's this like guy strung up, like his tongue is cut out, or seems it's horrible. And no sooner does she discover that than she hears like people are coming into the room, so she has to hide in this closet with this guy, and it's horrible. Oh my god.
It's horrible enough, this guy, but there's another level of horror, which is that as this captain is basically talking about his plots against Christina with like some other people in his office, he takes off his shirt and he's got a black torso.
Yes.
So like clearly some kind of magic going on, like he replaced body parts or something.
Something's happening.
Some fucked up shit's going on. And so he's got like a black torso, and and this all plays into what Ruby sees. And so when Ruby does have that conversation that you had mentioned with the black girl that's working at her job, you know, she had that moment where she said, these white people, they got more fucked up shit than you could even imagine. So you're like in a closet with your tongue cut out, you know, and the girl's looking at her like she's crazy, but this scene had just happened, you know?
Right, that scene had just happened. So we could get to, so at the end, so at the end, like, we find out what you had already guessed, that Christina is William, and she's using the same magic to transform into William that she gave to Ruby to be white.
Yeah. Just as Ruby, you know, had the inferiority complex about being black in a white world and what it would mean to be a white woman instead of a black woman, we know that Christina has had this thing going on since we first saw her in like episode 2 of the series, that she's always like had an inferiority complex about being female and being excluded from, you know, the Sons of Adam and all the cult stuff that her family was involved in.
Right, exactly.
So that's the parallel between them, you know, now. And so they're sharing power together.
Right. Let's see, we could talk about Letty and Tick's story. There's not too much.
Well, the main thing I guess we could kick off is what happened with Montrose and Atticus and Letty.
Oh, yeah.
Which is that Montrose basically revealed that the girl was gone. Letty didn't put it together until later, like Atticus later in the episode told her what that meant. Well, but Atticus picked up on it immediately.
Yeah, he revealed that the girl was gone, and also that the scrolls were gone as well. Montrose like burned them.
Yeah.
And this leads to Tick completely losing it, and he starts beating on Montrose.
Oh yeah, almost kills him. Just beats him like.
Yeah, just almost kills him. This scares the shit out of Letty. So basically what happens is like the scrolls are gone, but Letty took pictures of them that she was developing, you know, and so basically what we get this episode is we get some character interaction with, you know, Tick and Letty, you know, like basically like deepening their relationship while they discuss, Tick's issues, Tick's daddy issues, and also discuss like what they're discovering, you know, like, going over the scrolls or going over the pictures of the scrolls Letty took, you know.
Yeah. And this is like I said, later in the episode when Tick reveals to Letty that, you know, when Atticus said that she was gone, like he didn't mean she left, he mean that he killed her, you know, and this kind of shocks Letty and has her kind of upset about everything that they're involved in. She's like, these things are evil, these things are horrible, and Atticus is like, no, this is just a tool.
Yeah, Letty is convinced that this magic is manipulating them now, like has manipulated Montrose into doing what he did, is now manipulating Tick, and maybe some of this evil magic is like making Tick more aggressive.
Yeah, that it's corrupting them.
Yeah.
And Tick is like saying, he's arguing like, no, like we're using this to protect our kind, and he's like, what's wrong? What could be wrong about that? And Letitia's like, well, look what your father did to protect you.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what's going on with the two of them. I mean, we could continue on with what's going on with Montrose.
Yeah, we could, yeah.
Another reveal that's kind of like, did you pick up on that about Montrose, like, earlier?
I did not. I'm gonna be honest.
That's another one I kind of, like, half picked up on and half, like, I saw some other people picking up on it that were talking about it, so I can't claim I saw that entirely myself coming, but Yeah, turns out Montrose is gay. He's mostly closeted because it's the times. It's the harsh reality of the times.
Yeah.
But the connections, the things you could make is how often he was hanging out at that one bar that we had seen in the first episode of the show that the owner was gay.
Right.
And that this guy seemed to be like the closest friend Montrose had, and kind of the vagueness about their relationship that was hinted at. Those are kind of the clues about it, Also some of the stuff about, Atticus's mom and why she might not actually have been, or why he might not actually be Atticus's dad. Like all that kind of stuff was kind of like hinting at that a little bit here and there. Like it seems like, George kind of knew, or might have known, about his brother. But yeah, so it's revealed that Montrose is gay, and you have this kind of powerful moment because, first when it's revealed, it's just a straight rough sex scene.
Right, yeah.
Where, he's just kind of getting it out of his system. He refuses to kiss his lover, Sammy, who's like the guy that owns the bar. So he refuses to kiss him, and so we're getting all these aspects of it. But then later on, that's like fully addressed because he and Sammy are like backstage at some club, and it's like a drag performance or something. And there's all these drag queens in the backstage area, and he's kind of with them, and they're talking about Sammy's relationship with them. And amongst this community, they all know about Montrose. So this is where he's not closeted, and they're talking about the fact that Sammy's like, oh, you're just jealous that you don't have a boy. And he's like, well, have you guys even kissed yet? And they bring up all these kind of things. But you have this moment when Montrose is in the club. He's surrounded by, he's in like the LGBTQ community, basically.
Right.
Completely surrounded, feeling safe for the first time. And he's all beat up, remember, from Tick beating the shit out of him. So he's at this like low point. He's wounded. He's feeling smaller than he's ever felt. He's in this club. He's surrounded by this community. And you can just see the pressure like roll off of him. Like it's a powerful moment. He's like, there's like the music's going and you can kind of see him just kind of swaying to the music and dancing, and he gets picked up and he's like lifted up and carried. And it's just like, it's the idea of like him kind of letting go of everything that's been resting heavily on his shoulders all this time. Then he ends up, kissing Sammy.
Yes.
And it's a step kind of saying that like he's maybe made some progress on himself as a person and what he's dealing with. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Like it'll be interesting to see what Atticus and Montrose's relationship is going to be moving forward. Not just because of this scene of Montrose accepting himself, but also of what happened between Atticus and Montrose.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of what's going on with them. And then I think the last thing to mention is that at the very end of the episode, Atticus cracks the code.
Yes.
And he sees a message. It looks like it just says die. It's got to be more to it than that, because he immediately makes a phone call. This is the person that he had talked to, like I believe in the pilot episode, or maybe it was in the second episode, who we know now is supposedly the same woman that was in his dream sequence at the very beginning of the show. And he says something along the lines of, how did you know? And she kind of like is commenting like, we can't get into that or whatever. And he's like, how did you know? And he's angry with her. And it looks like that's going to be our next story in this series.
Yep, definitely.
Which seems to be what happened in Korea. Because that was also hinted at. He talked to Letty in this episode about how he never thought that he had his father's violence in him. That he grew up and his father would beat him and stuff, and he always like denied that was a part of him, that wouldn't be a part of him. But then when he went to war, he said he found it. And we know that Letty saw it when he beat up Montrose, when he beat up his own father. So we're gonna see what happened in Korea, I think, very soon.
I think you may be right about that.
Is there anything else to mention about this episode?
I think we covered everything.
Yeah, that's Lovecraft Country then. Next week, we're going to be on schedule with both The Boys and Lovecraft Country, so it's back to one episode of each, or for the first time, I guess, one episode of each. We're finally going to be on a regular schedule for that. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about next week. Until then, all we have left is what's coming up in the week ahead, and a couple weeks ahead, I should say. On Monday, September 14th, that's today, the Third Day miniseries comes to HBO. I've mentioned this before on our, on the horizon, kind of what's coming up section on this podcast, but I never knew this show is from the creator of Utopia, that British show. It's from basically almost the entire creative team of that show. So this might be one to look into. It just hit HBO, so check your HBO Max. Third Day might be one to look into. It's a mini-series, apparently. There's also another mini-series that's kind of like a coming-of-age story called We Are Who We Are. Both of them started today. On Wednesday, September 16th, Archer returns on FXX. On Thursday, September 17th, Departure, another mini-series, comes to Peacock. The Last Word comes to Netflix, and Dragon's Dogma to Netflix. On Friday, September 18th, Pen 15 returns to Hulu, and Ratched comes to Netflix. That's the next series from Ryan Murphy. It's like a prequel to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, oddly enough.
Mm-hmm.
On Sunday, September 20th, Last Tango in Halifax comes to PBS. On Monday, September 21st, Big Hero 6 to Disney XD, Filthy Rich to Fox, and LA's Finest makes its broadcast debut on Fox. It already debuted on Spectra. On Friday, September 25th, Tehran comes to Apple TV+. A Wilderness of Air, a miniseries, comes to FX. And The School Nurse Files comes to Netflix. And lastly, on September 27th, Bless the Hearts to Fox, Bob's Burgers to Fox, Family Guy to Fox, The Simpsons to Fox, The Comey Rule miniseries to Showtime, and Fargo to FX returns for its, I believe, 4th season. It's been like several years between those, so that's a pretty big one. But yeah, it's, this is the fall season. It'll be interesting to see how much stuff is actually coming in this fall season, though, because a lot of stuff is halted because of the
it's
virus.
going to be a pretty slim fall.
Yeah.
In terms of content.
But you look at most of this stuff, like that I mentioned on Sunday, and it's all animated shows on Fox. So animated stuff probably won't be affected too bad because they could do that from home, you know?
Right. No, animated is fine, but yeah, live action stuff is going to be.
Yeah. I think you're still going to get some big stuff like Fargo was filmed way in advance, you know?
Right.
So that obviously is unaffected by it. Fargo was filmed entirely before the outbreak happened, you know? It was completely wrapped. It just takes a long time to edit and get everything ready for that. But all these other shows, man, there's going to be a lot of stuff that was put on hiatus that they're not going to be able to get up and running in time.
For sure.
Yeah. But yeah, from this schedule of stuff coming up ahead, man, the Third Day show that starts today, that wasn't on my radar at all. And then I found out it's from the creative team from Utopia. And now I'm like psyched.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
And then Fargo, of course.
Right. Yeah, Fargo.
As I mentioned, next week, we're going to talk about The Boys in Lovecraft Country again. Till then, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best in genre